Hey everybody, in today's episode, it's myself, Benjamin B., and a very special guest, Russell Brand. Russell was so kind to come on the show and just talk recovery. Now, full transparency, I just press record and we start going. We did have an audience. We had about 15 people in the background, so you will notice him looking towards the audience for the majority of the episode. Such good content. It's Russell Brand. He has a way with words. He has a way with communicating. So hone in on this. There's a lot of good pieces of information, especially if you're early on in your recovery. We know you're going to love this show. Enjoy the show.
That you have to live like a monk. Oh, do I have to be a monk? And like it says in our literature, we are not saints, but I don't mean we're supposed to be trying to. And if you've read anything about saints, most of them, Tom, they're such bloody lunatics and psychopaths. So I went back to the abbey town of Bury St Edmund. Like if you actually knew a saint, they're annoying, you know what I mean? Like to actually know St Francis of Assisi, to read about him, fantastic. But if you were there and he's bringing butterflies in and animals and squirrels all the time, plus while he was operating apparently in the principalities and regional armies of medieval Italy, I think was when Francis of Assisi was going on, he was chopping people's heads off. He was out of control, that dude. And he weren't wearing no shoes or socks. He was a lunatic is basically what I'm saying about St Francis. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred I may bring love, that where there is wrong I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord I may bring harmony, that where there is error I may bring truth, that where there is doubt I may bring faith, that where there is despair I may bring hope, that where there are shadows I may bring light, that where there is sadness I may bring joy. Lord, grant I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand and to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, it's by forgiving that we are forgiven, it's by giving that we receive, it's by dying that we awaken to eternal life. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I went back to that place, Bury St Edmund, and this woman with Downs, quite young, Down syndrome, come up to me and goes, "Are you Russell Brand?" And I'm like, yeah, I'm Russell Brand. She goes, "Come to my house where I live." I go, "Where do you live?" You know, like I try to be open to God around every corner when I'm open. Sometimes I go into what I call my active state, Tom, when the addiction is on me. When the addiction is on me, I am closed. I am a closed circuit, and all I care about is myself, what I want and what I don't want. I can't believe I'm still like it. I was like it yesterday. I might be like it again today, unless I stay so close to God. But when I'm open, I'm available to the presence of God in all relationships, in all situations, and I recognize that God is putting me wherever God wants me, moment to moment. Same as all of us. Like, I'm not better than you. I'm not worse than you. I'll take that deal. In the past, I'm better than you. I'm worse than you. I'm better than you. I'm worse than you. Or like it says in our literature, struggling to get to the top of the heap or hiding underneath it. But when he is with me, I'm not bothered about better or worse. God is everywhere. God is everything. And so this woman with Downs, can't remember her name, it's a long time ago, it might be 15 years ago. She goes, "Come back to my house." I'm trying to work out what type of house she lives in. And like she lives in sort of shared accommodation, of course, in some sort of supported residential area. And while I'm in the taxi heading over there with her, I'm hearing her sort of talking to people. "Yeah, Russell Brand's coming here. Russell Brand's coming here." By the time I arrive at this sheltered accommodation, there's like about 20 or 30 people waiting outside for me. They say, "Oh, hello." And some people are sort of like quite visibly suffering from what they, in my country, euphemistically call learning difficulties, but it's quite a broad range of learning difficulties. Some people don't look like they'll be able to cope at all. And it's something I want to get over. But when I'm meeting people, I'm like, "Oh, hello, nice to meet you." Like, you know, when you're meeting people that have been really damaged and bruised by life, you sort of don't want to crunch them. They already know that the universe has rough edges. You don't want to be another contributor to their trauma, or even lighten up their trauma in ways that you might not understand. You don't want to be doing that. But I'm going around going like everyone, like, "Hello, it's nice to meet you. Hello, nice to meet you." I'm doing that voice. And I said to one woman, "Hello, nice to meet you." She goes, "I fucking work here." Like that. I'd use the "Are you okay?" voice instead of the "All right, mate." But I suppose one of the things since coming to Christ that I know and that I understand is that we are all broken. You're the same as me. You're like me. You're broken. Like me.
That's going to make a great clip.
Yep, right there.
What I've learned throughout this whole recovery process, and Ben and I, fun fact, we'll just open up with this. Ben and I are born same exact day, same year, April 7th, 1984. We met in sobriety, right? Started this podcast back in 2017, and I always had a vision for this podcast. What that looked like, I was not always 100% sure. I just know I wanted it to impact people as much as possible. And like I shared with you before, we have referenced your stuff inside of our treatment center here, Rock Recovery Center, multiple times. And I guess now's a good time to share the book that we oftentimes reference stuff from. And I guess all to say, you being here in our presence with the audience that we have and taking time out of your day, I know you have a super busy schedule ahead of you. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thanks. Look, I'm always happy to be with addicts because when I'm with addicts, I'm with people that understand what I'm like. Even though sometimes people are surprised when they see how crazy I am. Like people ask, they're like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not joking. I'm a drug addict. I'm a drug addict. If I'm not with God, I'm in trouble.
Our pain and craziness uniquely qualifies us to help others. And I'd love the opportunity to share like how you sharing your experience has personally helped me, because that book touched my heart.
Oh, thanks.
When I was in early recovery, I really needed somebody that could simplify and dummy it down. And I always say, thank God for good sponsorship. I had a sponsor that brought me through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That book came out when I was in early recovery. Actually, that's my copy right there. I'm highlighting it. And the way there's a line in the big book in step 10. It says our next function is to become more understanding and effective. And the way that I perceive that is like the effectiveness. How do you become more effective at helping others? And that's through communicating a message. The way that you communicated and simplified those steps for me, like there's a line in there that I'll never forget. I'm paraphrasing, but along the lines of doing steps 1, 2, and 3, it takes as long as nodding your head yes. I had never heard that before.
Yeah.
I thought I had to write an expose on the first step to be able to admit that. And just the way that you simplified it really showed me I can dummy this thing down.
Thank you, Ben. That's a really beautiful compliment. Thank you. That's so lovely that you're both your literal brothers in recovery, April 7th, 84. Can you tell me again what that was? Function. What's that thing from the big book? Our next function is to
grow in understanding and effectiveness.
To grow in understanding and effectiveness. That's what we've got to do. That's our function and our job. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. When I wrote that book, what I knew was I actually probably didn't have the love for the big book then that I have now. In fact, now I probably wouldn't write that book. I'd probably consider it disrespectful to write an interpretation of the big book. I'd think, who do you think you are writing an interpretation of the big book? Because I do believe it's a sacred and inspired text, but this is probably an indication of where I am in my Christian journey, is I feel like I should write something that's interpreting and translating some of the things I'm understanding from Scripture, because I feel like some of it, I reckon I could make it sound easier to comprehend. I mean, these texts are difficult because, in a sense, aren't we continually trying to refer to something that is, yes, of course, it's knowable, but it's somewhat ineffable. Ineffable meaning hard to get hold of, hard to grasp. Because when I first, like any of us in here that are in recovery, I didn't come into recovery to cultivate a relationship with God. I didn't think that's what I was doing. And I've been aware of Jesus Christ, like everyone, basically as long as I've been aware of, Batman or like anything. There's Batman, there's Jesus, there's Santa Claus, there's all these things. Oh, I get it, and choose which ones you like. And in my country, it's like they've gone out of the way to make Jesus sort of boring. With no offense to the Church of England, who some of the clergy of which have educated me beautifully. But like everywhere I go, because of my like inherent mistrust, Ben and Tom, of all systems, I don't like, like when I go into AA, I thought all I'm doing this for, 12-step groups, whenever I go any of them, all I'm thinking is I'm doing this because I don't want to drink and use. That's it. And they knew that. They know that, the people that create the program is. And in fact, I do want to drink and use. I just don't want to, I can't deal with the consequences of my drinking and using anymore. I can't have another person looking at me like that. I can't feel like that when I'm on my own. I can't be like I'm gonna like on the edge of suicide anymore. I can't. But I kind of tell you this: if I get to December the 13th and I do get to 22 years, one day at a time, I still live on the edge. I'm always on the edge. I'm on the edge of bursting into tears. I'm on the edge of falling in love. I'm on the edge of ending my life. I'm on the edge of knowing Christ more deeply. The edge is where He wants us, because we are not a destination. We are an event, a journey. A human being is not an object. A human being is a conduit for God's love. Did you not know that your body is a temple? Did you not know that your body is a temple? Love one another as I have loved you. Be willing to sacrifice yourselves. When I was like taking on that, I just thought step one is like if you think, we all know addicts that don't have step one. We all know them. We are that addict sometimes. Powerless over drugs or alcohol. Life is unmanageable. I'm not powerless. I can stop whenever I want. I think it's all right. I'm sleeping. I heard a woman say once that she had like pet rats, but they were sort of loose in the room, and she goes, I'm like Cinderella, and they're all helping me get dressed, like in a movie where it's like, but like in reality, there's rats crawling over her. That's a junkie perspective, isn't it? But like you as an addict might tell yourself, true, like that's not step one. Hold on, there's rats crawling all over you. We're in a powerless, unmanageable situation. Like most obviously, if you can't stop drinking or using when you try to, powerless and unmanageability. So we all know what that level is. All of us in this room that have had problems with substance misuse know that we're powerless and that our lives have become unmanageable. This, I would say, someone pointed this out to me. This is a subtler thing right there in step one that I struggle with today and I'm struggling with today is unmanageability. I try, not like, I know that I'm chaotic. I know that I'm weird. I've already got my shoes off. I'm in a blanket. I can't pretend to be normal. I'm never going to pretend to be normal in front of you lot. Because if I spoke to any one of you for 5 minutes, you'd tell me stuff about yourself. I'd think, well, you're like me. You're a freak and you're a mess. And also you're beautiful and you're broken and God's going to come through you in your brokenness. But like in acknowledging our powerlessness and unmanageability, the journey can begin there. Step two, a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. We're already right into spiritual ideas, aren't we? What is this power that's greater than myself that's going to restore me to sanity? We all know addicts and alcoholics that don't know step two. I can't change. It's impossible to change. I'm broken, man. This is how I'll always be. I was that. I remember when it would have been it was around January, I figure. The first Christmas I got clean, 2002, I remember making a very sort of powerful speech to my friend Lucy there's a very famous, one of the world's greatest ever guitarists is in our program in the UK, and he holds a sort of a bash under the auspices of our fellowship. And the first ever sober event I went to was that. I think it was a New Year's Eve party. I think it was around festive period anyway. And I remember saying, like, I did not like a sober event. I still had burned foils in the pockets of my jacket. Still had, but like, because I put on a jacket because it was a fancy event. There was still burned foils in the pockets of my jacket. It crossed my mind, maybe I can burn a bit more out of that. There might be a bit on that. I've got weeks clean at that point. And I say to my friend Lucy, like this, I can hear melodramatics of, you've seen these kind of moments in films. And if we're not careful, we'll end up emulating and mimicking things that are not even real. Why do you think that? How did that thought get in your head? Who put that there? Is it childhood trauma? Is it the culture? Is it biochemistry? Is it neurology? How do you want to approach it? The main thing is we want it out of there, and only God can remove it. Only the super state of potentialities, if intersected with through the divine principle of communion that occurs when you're in alignment with God, can alter us. And where can it happen? Only in the moment, only in the now, only in the present. Continual renewal of the mind. I gave this sort of speech, probably have seen it in a film somewhere, like, look, it's not going to be for me, I'm not going to be one of those people that got clean at 27 and then just stopped taking drugs. I'm going to be dead. I think I said I was going to be dead at 27, and I was 27. I only had another 6 months of being 27, so I was making some bold claims. I'll be dead at 27, man. Live fast, die young, all of that kind of stuff. I said it to her. And I've not drank or used one day at a time between saying that then, a person that I don't even recognize, and saying this now, a person that one day I won't recognize, for surely there is a lot more growth to come, Lord. She, however, she was clean 1 year then. She's drunk and used a but I 6 months ago was visiting her in a treatment centre with you'll understand this, Dr. T. I don't know what this machine was, but it was taking blood from her neck and cycling it. So I don't know what she did to herself in her last relapse, but it was taking blood from her neck. We're not talking, from her neck and like recycling it in a machine. I almost feel like I might be adding this. You know how you exaggerate stuff when you tell a story. But I feel like I could see the blood whirling around, like in something out of, like the doctor's machine out of Back to the Future, or, like it was anyway, that ain't even her last use up. She came out of that 60-day coma and used again. She's clean today, though. She's clean and sober today, but thank the Lord. So none of us. So step 2 is, do you believe it's possible for you to change? And today, Lord, I know with you all things are possible. Lord, I know you can change me however you want. You can put me where you want me. You can change me however you want me. We don't know whether it's our man John there with 47 days or me sat here with 22 years that will drink or use next. We don't know. We'd think, well, presumably the guy that's been doing it 22 years has got a stack of days, and the kid that's got 47 days, well, he could go there. He's going to, if he hangs out with his old friends, if he does what he used to do, if he repeats the patterns of the past, if he doesn't do part of step 2 is ensuring new habits. Firstly, you see people that are just like you that are clean now. Oh, wow, April the 7th, 1984, they were born. Now they're running a treatment centre and they're all jacked and they're surrounded by all their jacked buddies.
Just made my day. Thank you. I hope he was talking about me and not the guy in the back.
Hence recovery, the recovery of bros. Like if I do what they do, I'll get what they got. Like we know that. We know. And then what are the habits of a sober person? Regular attendance of meetings, having a sponsor, faith in a higher power, working the steps, reading the literature, serving others. If when people say abstinence-based recovery don't work, that's your checklist for them. Like, I tried that. Tried AA, it doesn't work. Oh, what was the name of your sponsor? What was your home group when it stopped working? What step were you on when it stopped working? What was your favorite passage from the big book when it stopped working? You didn't have any of those things, did you? Because even people that like 20, 30 years that go out or string themselves up, they've stopped doing it. Because this works, to quote Basil Fawlty as John Cleese in 40 Towers, it works, you don't. It works, you don't. When I stop working it, I'm mad. I'm mad. And it doesn't take much to remind me or to put me back there. So that's step 2. Now I'll shut up. It's your podcast.
Listen, I've said this so many times that there's moments, not many, I like to talk, but there's moments in the podcast where I just shut up. And honestly, what I heard there is wisdom. I love that it doesn't work. How'd you word that again?
It works, you don't.
It works,
John Cleese,
you don't. I mean, that's the most simplistic way to put it. And that's something that we have clients that come through here day in and day out. The vast majority of them do the things that we ask them to do. But every now and again, you have the ones that this just won't work for them. They won't get the sponsor. They won't try a 12-step program. They'll try something that's an offshoot that is directly a result of a 12-step program, but they put their own kind of spin on it, and then they label it something else, and then they call us back 4 to 6 weeks later wondering why they picked up again.
Can I elaborate on that too? Because it's funny, I love that you brought up step 2. And my personal experience with that is I didn't believe. However, to your point, for whatever reason, I did the work. Honestly, if I look back, I share this all the time, it was out of spite. I wanted to prove to you that this program didn't work because I was sicker and you didn't understand.
Yeah. I think there was some of that in that rant that I was giving around Christmas time 2002. I'm so sick. You won't be able to fix me. I'm broken. Like sort of glorying in the identity of brokenness, but not in the way of our brokenness is our part of our gift, because in our brokenness we may know him. In our weakness, his strength may be supreme. But in a kind of like sort of, I don't want to say satanic, but in a kind of way that's sort of dark, kind of a dark, twisted way.
I think that you said something a little bit ago that knowing what you know now, you wouldn't have wrote this book. I don't know if you fully comprehend the impact that it has had on people, because we run into a lot of people that have an issue with the whole God concept, and they cannot, for whatever reason, wrap their mind around a higher power that's greater than themselves.
Oh, I can help them with that because of my own challenges. I thought I was too clever to believe in God. That's what I thought. I thought, that's for idiots and grandmothers. That's what I didn't think it was like a thing for serious people. I'm clever. You best not come to me with some made up superstitious thing. I don't know who the hell I thought I was. Think of all the things. I'd like to do this sometimes with the steps. Think of the number of times you came to believe that drugs and alcohol would restore you to sanity. How many times I just need to score. I need to drink. I need a drink. I need a drink. I have no question about what the solution is. All I'm thinking is I've got to get that in me. I'll do what it takes to get that in me. Or step 3, how many times have I handed my will and my life over to the care of drugs and alcohol, as I understand drugs and alcohol? Like people are like, your rent is late, your relationship's fallen apart, your family are ashamed of you. What are you going to do? Get high? That was it. That was my best thinking. I'm going to get high, and by the time I come back from all this, hopefully everything will be all right. But often when I came back from that little sojourn into chemically induced euphoria, things was worse. Like I'd wake up places I didn't know where I was. I've woken up like you in cells. I've woken up in hospitals 22 years ago when like drugs and alcohol. I've woken up in crazy situations as a result of that. What an insane thing to hand your life over to. So what is faith? Here are some things that I've heard that are brilliant. That the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is certainty. It's acknowledging that in faith there is a requirement. I'm not absolutely certain, like, Jesus and God. I'm not certain like that. I'm like, I accept him. I surrender to him. I know I'm not real. And I also recognize, and we are very blessed to be drug addicts and alcoholics, because we know what dedication and devotion and worship is. We know what it is. I'm committed to drugs and alcohol. I'm fully 100% committed to drugs and alcohol. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll do whatever it takes. All I've got to do now, and all any recovering alcoholic and addict, and hopefully I conveyed that in that book, all any alcoholic and addict has got to do is allow themselves to be redirected. Redirect that determination you have to drink and use no matter what. Redirect that belief that you're worthless, that you're not good enough, you're broken. Everything I've done 4 and 5 with my own, and I've had the blessing of doing it with a lot of other alcoholics and addicts. I know this is at the bottom of step 5 always. Step 4 and 5 are the steps that are about inventorying and sharing that inventory with another trusted person who's done the steps themselves. This is what I know. Every addict feels that they are dirty and that they are worthless and that they are broken. Every addict I've ever spoken to feels like if you knew me really, you would not like me. You wouldn't be able to love me. Every addict, alcoholic that I know, does not trust people in a very deep level. I do not trust you. You will let me down. You will break me and betray me. And even now, thinking about that and feeling that, the only thing that could relieve us of our dilemma is God. God can and will if he is sought. Because it's so like, who can you really trust? Human beings are fallible and broken. I'm not saying that when we are in Christ, that we're not trustworthy. Of course we are. We are broken. We are sinners. And it's in sin that he knows us and he loves us and he died for us, knowing who we are. There's nothing that I've thought or done that he doesn't know about me. He knows it all, and he forgives me and he loves me enough to die for me that I may be redeemed. Now, the problem is for drug addicts and alcoholics, I would say sometimes, is it's hard to take on that proposition rationally because of the supernatural, mythic and historical components. Like, what do you mean? God actually came to earth in human form and died that I may know eternal life and took on the burden of my sin. Who is this contract with? How are such contracts undertaken? How does that make scientific, biochemical, physical astrophysical sense, cosmological, ontological, epistemological sense. How does that make sense? And the answer is, I don't know, and I will never know, because I don't have the hardware. I don't have the hardware. And this is how I get past that. Our sensory instruments are limited, like let's just take the normal model, 5 senses, so people could argue 6, 7, 20, I don't know. Like their eyes, the ears, tactility and all that. Like, is it likely that the same number of senses that you have instruments for is equal to the potential number of senses that there could be in infinity? This is if you didn't believe in God. If you believe in infinite universes and multiverses, which is the next best theory that they can come up with, deliberately extracting God, is it likely that you have the capacity to know all things, when we know that a human being is by definition limited and the universe is sort of by definition infinite or limitless? Even in the sensory realm that we can understand, the electromagnetic light range, we know we can only see. We can't see ultraviolet. We can't see infrared. There's creatures that can see stuff we can't see. There's creatures that can hear stuff we can't hear. That's even with and I say, imagine trying to explain the sense of smell to someone that didn't have a sense of smell. Imagine that. Well, there's a difference between paint and bacon and burning heroin and strawberries. Imagine that they didn't have that. Imagine the Helen Keller problem of someone that didn't have those. Well, imagine no one had a sense of smell. No one at all. You wouldn't even know the alphabet of it. You wouldn't know the vocabulary, the nomenclature. You wouldn't even be talking about it. The same way we're not. There is phenomena moving among us. Like he said continually, it's not given to you to know now. It comes through the Father. I can't explain it. It's too complicated. But I'll tell you one thing we do know is when they get down into the smallest observable components of material reality, it stops making sense. Electrons can be in one place, 2 places, neither, all of them. And the best guess is there's a sort of super state of potentiality where all realities are possible and present until they collapse into one reality somehow due to the influence and interaction with the observer or consciousness. Potentially the prima materia of all reality is consciousness. Certainly we don't know how consciousness comes from biological processes, so it's at least as likely that consciousness precedes all biological realities. No one can explain how the rules of the universe explode out of a highly dense molecular moment 14.7 billion years ago. So it's at least as likely that consciousness precedes it. Now, that's a lot to contend with in step 3. So we tend to put it this way. A God of your understanding. A God of your understanding. Your understanding. As long as you know there is a God and it's not you, and that you are forgiven and you are loved and there's a way back for you. Nothing you've done separates you from God forever. Nothing. There's a way back for you. And then for me, it's like, it's happening now. It's happening now. Not to sort of think because I've, got a blanket and people are listening to me that, oh, wow, you've got it resolved. I ain't resolved nothing. I'm no better. I'm on the same trip as John. 47 days. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I still might. Oh, am I a good enough dad? Am I a good enough husband? Am I a bad person? I miss my dog. It's just all in there. It's like, it's all a super state of potentialities. It's happening all the time. Am I being kind enough to other people? Please, Lord, keep me out of self-centeredness.
I should reference how what you just described had an effect on me personally as well. That was in your book. About the senses. And if I recall, it's been years since I've read it, honestly. But I think you referenced the porpoise in the book and mentioned how they have sonar and I don't. And because I came into this program anti-God, if there was a God, he did not do anything for me. You tell me this program's about quitting alcohol and drugs, I'm all about it. You tell me that God's a solution, I'm like, oh man, hold on, slow down. However, your description of that got me thinking to myself, well, all these other animals out in the world have these extra senses that I don't. Maybe as a human being, I was born ill-equipped with the sense of spirit. And what I came to realize in that moment after reading that portion in your book was maybe if I work on my sense of spirit, it will grow. So it's funny. I didn't even remember that until you just started speaking about it, how much of an impact that had on me, because I've shared that with a lot of people in early recovery that want nothing to do with the God concept, or as could be put, a God of your misunderstanding, if you will.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I'm fascinated that you changed from a position of not believing in God to a position of believing in God. And that's the journey that all of us have to make. And it's a difficult journey to undertake. And it's a journey that has to be taken here in the present. How can we participate in it now? How can we do the next right? What was that thing you said about function again?
Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness.
Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. You know, when people how we live our lives when we're drinking and using, we're sort of trying to invent a shamanic religion in real time. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to sort of create everyone who drinks and uses in the world. What are they trying to do? They're trying to feel better. Feel better is a spiritual problem. You don't feel good, do you? You don't like it in there, as Michael Singer always says. Well, you're already in a spiritual program when you're a drug addict. You're just in a spiritual program that is ineffective, or it's effective for a while. One of the things that I loved was when Jackie, who was a counsellor at the place where I got clean, Focus 12, Bury St Edmunds, Jackie, she said, when I arrived day one, when I was doing my P tests in a cup and getting my Subutex to help me get off of opiates, she said, well done, becoming a heroin addict. You found a way to survive. You found a way to survive. I didn't know how to survive in the world. I did not know. All I knew is this it? Now I know we are in exile here. We are vagrants. We're not meant to be here. We're meant to be here, but we're spiritual beings. And here in our exile, in our vagrancy, cast out of the garden, it is the only way that we can connect to a frequency. There's not, people act like there's no guidelines. There's guidelines. There's guidelines. The guidelines are this. Love one another as I have loved you. That means, I heard someone just taught me this about 2 days ago. It's been killing me. That means I've got to love people like to the point of self-sacrifice, Oh, I'll love you in a way that looks good all day long. I love that. I like nothing more than, come and be listened to by drug addicts. Oh, yes, please. I'm gonna feel so important. Or I love people in a way where I get to sound and feel like I'm all clever all day long. But love as I have loved you. What? So that I'm humiliated and shamed and nailed naked to a cross and jeered and mocked and ridiculed. And thankfully, I know a little bit more about that now. So what I would say to you is that I see what work you are doing here. I see it. Thankfully, and it's amazing and it's brilliant. And these are the communities and the churches that we must create, where, like as it says in the proclamation of the kingdom of heaven, we are creating communities and churches, not for people that are fine and well. It's sick people need doctors. We're a church for the broken. The more broken you are, that's one of the things I like about this place, the topsy-turvy, upside-down, inverted hierarchies. I was living in a ditch, smothered in excrement, injecting opiates into my eyes. Well done. You can have a badge. We'll put you in charge. You can make the coffee. So like I am at your service. I would like to, you'll know what I mean by this. I would like to recognize, step 10 that you will know is when we are wrong, we promptly admit it. So I would like to recognize that I was wrong for being late. I was wrong for suggesting that you should contribute to our costs for getting here. And I think that's it. I think those are my wrong. So I will not accept a contribution. Thank you. Please give that to these brilliant people here and continue your fantastic work. And I'm available to you whenever you need me.
Russell, I tell you what, this has been a dream come true for me. Yeah.
Tom started this in his underwear.
Yeah.
And should we finish it in our underwear?
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message.
Turn your mess into your message with Real Recovery. I've got a complaint and a concern. Your blanket has left...
Oh,
lots of shit all over
I got a lint roller.
I'm going to Mar-a-Lago.
We'll see you later.
I'm going to Mar-a-Lago. Dressed like this.